Hey, hey, welcome to another episode. I am Dagny.
I'm Damali.
And in this episode, we wanted to discuss with you the concept of eliminating distractions.
Yes.
And in that, we want to talk about what kinds of distractions are we dealing with in these times that we're in. Also, sharing our own experiences of how we navigate understanding or even like recognizing these distractions as they are, and what processes we've been through, dynamics we've been through to figure out how to balance them, remove them altogether, or just accept, like, you know what, we're just going to carry it and keep it moving. Okay.
Yes.
So when we first start about talking about distractions, I'm going to ask you first, Damali. In terms of distractions, what kind of distractions in your life now and in the recent past have you been navigating and dealing with?
Yeah, distractions are fun, right? Everyone knows what we mean when we talk about them, right? But yeah, so for eliminating distractions, it's definitely hard to do. I think now the distractions I have are I'm sure everyone knows about social media, right? Everyone is aware of social media and technology and things like that. Things that I didn't used to be distracted by, but then have become a distraction for me. Even like my phone, like when I first got a phone when I was younger, like I don't know what I was in middle school, high school, it wasn't that distracting. I would just use it for okay games sometimes, talking on the phone, blah blah, blah yada yada, and then introduce, oh, your phone becomes a mini computer now. Oh, okay. So that's interesting. More things to do on your phone, and then all of a sudden I'm like, why am I spending hours on my phone when I'm not doing anything? Like what, you know? And I noticed this too, whether I was like in school settings or if it's the weekend or or whether I have a job or I don't have a job or I'm in school or I'm not. It's still a distraction. You can always it's funny, you can always find time to be distracted, right? So yeah, so that's been a distraction. TV shows, Netflix, HBO, things like that. If I'm really into a show, K-dramas, I have to finish it all in one night, obviously, right? Even like books too can be a distraction. Just like I'm just gonna read this whole book for the whole day and not go outside. It's fine, whatever. Um, but that's maybe a slightly healthier distraction than being on social media all the time. And yeah, and so like and then now we see reports and people saying that we have to actively try not to be distracted. Like we have to like I have to take time out of my day to not be distracted. What? That's so that wasn't a I feel like that wasn't so much of a concept for me when I was younger. I would just always be like playing outside and stuff. But yeah, like I literally have to do that sometimes where I'm like, okay, today I'm not gonna do this on social media, or I have to not go on Instagram for an hour or something, or like, or I have to like plan not to be using social media because of how distracting it is. And then what's worse is that even when you notice it's distracting you, sometimes that's not like enough kind of thing. You're like, oh, I probably should do something else. One more episode, one more episode. It's always like one more episode, one more chapter, and I'll go to
Mm.
bed. And then of course we know that there are a lot of effects of distractions on your brains. We don't realize it, but it does affect us. Like I think everyone knows the drug. It's called dopamine, and dopamine is simply put, it's like the feel good hormone, right? Like when you get a dopamine boost, you feel really good, and it's like a pleasure hormone, right? And so, and the issue of dopamine is like once you get one hit of dopamine, you need more and more and more to satisfy the pleasure hormone because you want to feel better and better and better. And that's why things like social media are dangerous because like you can't do the same thing each time. Like if you watch something for an hour, okay, great. But then next time 2 hours, and then next time 3 hours, and then like it keeps on. It doesn't like it's like the dopamine is like a shark, I guess, and it always wants more, like to suck out energy from you, kind of thing. And yeah, and then the issue of this is that dopamine controls a lot of things in the mind, right? It controls the memory, your mood, sleep, concentration, the movement, your body functions, like all your sense of pleasure. It affects so many things of your brain. And so if social media is controlling, or you were letting yourself be controlled by all of these things, then it's no wonder you feel like, I don't know if anyone knows, but like you can be hungover even if you haven't drank alcohol, right? And I think that social media is like that, right? Because yeah, do you feel like if you stay up late watching a movie or something until 3 a.m, if you try to wake up the next day, you're like out of it, right? You're out of it. You can't move. Your body functions, or you can't remember things. Everything hurts. Like you can't see. It's like a hangover, but it's from social media, right? And I think in some ways, I guess it's like can we call it an epidemic or a pandemic with social
Mm.
media? I don't know if we can call it that, but yeah, it can be just as bad, I think, as like if you want to make a metaphor of like a drug or alcohol or gambling, or like social media can be like that too. So yeah, I think that's definitely, yeah, I've had different ones, but social media for sure. Social media has been a distraction, or books, movies, Netflix, fan fiction, things like that. And another thing that I notice is it can distract you from your purpose, I think, and your goals,
Mm.
because instead of creating something in your life, you're looking at other creations. And unless you use it as a tool to help you create, let's say, or to help you act, then I don't know if it works. And not only that, but it's tiring. If you've had your phone on for a long time, or you've been texting a lot or doing things, your fingers are sore, your arms are sore, your eyes, like it can really be hard for you. So that, I guess that's to start with my distraction thing, and how
Mhm.
still get distracted, especially when you and it doesn't matter how busy or not busy you are, you
Mhm.
can still
Mhm.
get distracted. But
I like
and then, well,
also,
and what about you, Dag?
yeah,
What are the
I like also
distractions?
how you brought up distractions, not only with technology, but uh, bringing in the analogy of dopamine, which brings
Yes.
in the conversation of addiction. And I think that
Mhm.
also takes note of how I feel as I don't know if it's a generational thing, but I do feel like we barely use our brains to its fullest capacity.
Yes.
And so because of the amount, and I can't tell you like the percentages, I'm sure there's stats out there like the percentage of how much we use, but I feel like because we're using a smaller percentage of our brains, the addiction, slipping into addictions seems to be easier. As in, like, it takes so much effort to not do that because we're not using our brains as much as we could. And we are not taught how to train our brains like a muscle, like we are taught how to train muscles of our body, muscles of skill set for the job, those sorts of things. But when it comes to can you expand the capacity of your brain, we don't do that. Or it's only like part of a movie, like that movie Lucy. Was that what it's called? With
Yes.
Scarlett Johansson, where like she
Lucy with
could use her
Scarlett Johansson.
entire
Yeah,
brain.
ScarJo.
Yeah, she can use her entire brain. So that's why she was able to do all this other stuff. Because I'm pretty sure that character doesn't need to be scrolling on her phone because there's so much other stuff that her brain is doing that's more interesting. Yes. And then when we look at the addiction part of it, it also, I think also part of that is also numbing ourselves, which then removes us from the creating or the purpose or actually doing things that we enjoy. Because if you're doing something that you enjoy, the hungover part doesn't really happen. You should feel uplifted, rejuvenated, even more energized because you spent so much time doing something you actually enjoy. While if after binge watching a show, even though it's supposed to be entertainment and you do like the show, but why do you feel so drained and tired afterwards? Regardless of the time it is, because you can be binge watching during the day, right? And you're done at like 6 p.m. and you feel completely like, whoa, I need to go to sleep. Like, whoa, right? So it's not sure if anyone has done studies for that, but I feel like it goes deeper than um, sometimes the conversations tends to be like, oh, it's just you don't know how to put your phone down. And it's like, no, actually, this is like real psychological stuff going
It really is an
on
addiction.
with
Yeah.
these tools where it is a real addiction. So it's not just like It's funny because like we don't have like anonymous rehab yet. I don't think for people who are addicted to social media or addicted to Netflix. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't think we have that. And maybe because one believes that, well, addiction to gambling, well, we see the result. You end up broke. You know what I'm saying? Or there's a problem. Addiction to drugs, we see the result. It's your health as well as your money because you got to pay for those drugs. Addiction to alcohol, your health and the money. And possibly those two can also lead to violence, unfortunately, depending on how it's affecting you. While addiction to social media, addiction to watching shows, addiction to just like this technology stuff in general, I don't know if like the results of it, if we've defined them yet as being a problem, because usually the conversation is just the individual themselves taking note of like, yeah, I haven't really been outside for like 2 months.
Yeah, what's going on? What's going on here?
Well, and that's it. But because that's just you, it didn't cause an issue for all society. So whatever. It didn't necessarily cause violence. Your health, I mean, well, technically, I'm pretty sure your health is your mental health that's having more of an issue, right? But I don't know. When we define those things, I don't know. So anyways, that was me responding to the piggies of the backs. With that,
always piggybacking with things.
So then, and
also to add real quick, not to interrupt you, but
go ahead.
Quick. I think for timing too, because like when I was a kid, right? For a kid, I would think I was pretty happy as a kid, right? And I noticed I didn't need as many distractions and things like that. But I think as I've gotten older and as like you become an adult and stuff, things you see the real stuff going on in the world. And I do think of like mental health and when I'm in like darker moments or I'm more confused or tired, it's much easier to be distracted or have the certain addictions to social media. So I think your mental balance also affects that too.
But then I got to add something to that too. Hold on.
Yes, go ahead. Yes.
Because as kids, remember, even though we didn't have social media, but time on TV and computer games was something that some kids, I'm not going to say who in our house, but some kids in our house.
But it wasn't that bad.
I mean, I'm just saying, do I need to mention the Sims computer game?
Yes, the Sims.
Do I need to mention this?
Nancy Drew, the book.
The Nancy Drew, okay. And then TV, the marathons on the Disney Channel, marathons on Cartoon Network, the marathons on the Nickelodeon channel. I mean, we did have, there were some times where it's like, we were put in place of like, actually, you need to turn off the TV. Like it cannot be on the entire weekend sort of deal.
But the difference is that the parents could do something about it. Now, as an adult, I have to be the one to do it.
Right. But so then I think that also notes that there's different layers to distractions because technically speaking, those were distractions as well of like, we want to watch the Aladdin series on Disney Channel because it's a marathon for the entire afternoon. Or I am going to read the entire new Harry Potter book in 2 days that it came out, right? Like, yes. But I think it's true that the intentions behind it was like, those technically were still distractions in some way, but they, as a kid, they were not distracting you from the world coming to an end. Yes. Like it was the intention wasn't the bigger picture of distractions in that way. The intention was more of like there was maybe to an adult, it would be banal or minuscule distractions of like a distraction from your homework. So now you're not doing your homework or you're doing it on the way to school because you were watching this movie on TV or because you stayed up late on this computer game or video game, because we still had some video games on TV, using the TV, like the actual console, not the online ones like you have now. So that is, which now is also another layer for dealing with children and distractions now of how to introduce them to technology, which we can talk about later when we're talking about tips on what to do and stuff. But it's fascinating to look at because there was a time where TV was the main character in this discussion, claiming that people are watching too much TV, kids are watching too much TV, it's not good for them. You know, the commercials they're seeing, the types of shows they're seeing, looking at the screen for too long, like all of that was the main like debates that people were having. So for it to switch where the same results they were claiming that was a problem for watching TV are kind of the same results people are saying for social media. And well, now you're just watching shows online as opposed to on cable, I guess, right? But the same result of like, that's messing up, that could possibly be messing up psychologically or mentally to you is a different tool giving you the same result, and you still don't have TV addict anonymous rehab. That never became a thing. We just moved on to the next level of technology with the same coping mechanism of what do you do when people are so addicted to it that other aspects of their life end up falling off because this is the main thing they're looking at. So that's a good point. Okay.
Yeah.
Where was I before we went to that point?
Right.
Okay, yes, the distractions. Okay,
Yes.
for me, I would say distractions are in different categories. So I say one is technology. Two, I think, is your thoughts, the way you think of yourself, your beliefs, how you think of what other people think of you. Those sorts of things can be quite crippling for some people and lead to almost the same level of distraction and numbing and coping mechanisms as social media or technology does. And then distractions can also be people. Either the type of people you choose to surround yourself with, the type of people you have to tolerate at work, the type of people you got to tolerate at school. Now, when I say tolerate, I don't mean they're terrible, but it's like some people you cool with and some people it's like you just got to, clock in and clock out and deal with it sort of thing. And I think that can also lead to distractions as well. And the way we navigate each of them, I think I'm very much into mindfulness in every aspect of how you're dealing with your reality. And so I feel like those 3 pillars, 3 buckets are where you can find a lot of distractions that can derail you and your trajectory and your priorities and what you would like to see for yourself. And depending on how you deal with that, that can also possibly get you to get to a point where you even forget what is you or forget what is for you because we're so enmeshed in the distractions as well. Yeah. So next with that, should we get into how now that we've defined, okay, the types of distractions, how they've evolved, do we want to now get into how we have been navigating them, how we deal with them, or even what we've heard that sounds like it would be helpful? Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So wait, do you want to start with that or should I start?
Yeah, I can go ahead.
Okay.
I'll start the first part. Yeah, I think one thing when you said mindfulness, to piggyback off of that as we do, I thought about being present. And I know it's very difficult. I am sure, like most people, I think most of the time I'm kind of living in the present. I think I'm doing stuff in the present. Like I have to do this, I have to do that. But my thoughts often are either sitting in the past or they're sitting in the future. 2 things that we can't really do anything about, but for some reason we like to sit where we can't touch. I don't understand why we do that. Like the present, I can do something right now. All I can do is right now, but we're sitting in the past, we're sitting in the future, and we don't know what's going to happen, right? And I think with all distractions, I think being present and being aware of what you're doing at the moment and thinking about the purpose of what you're doing can be one way to help you deal with distractions. And you think it's funny because you think it would be easy, like, oh, of course I'm in the present, I can be in the present. But if you stop and really just think, what am I doing right now? And you think about it, and all of a sudden you are aware of things that you weren't like 2 seconds ago, right? Like how, like right now we're doing a podcast, and like obviously we're doing a podcast, but I was thinking about what I was going to say. Whereas right now I'm like, oh, I'm doing a podcast right now. Wow, I totally forgot. Like you didn't, but your mind kind of tricks you, kind of thing. So I think being present is helpful. And even after you do something, like I don't do this all the time, but if I'm distracted by something or I'm watching another episode that I shouldn't be, I'm thinking, wait a minute, Damali, what are you doing? What is the purpose of this? How is this helping you? We start asking questions like that, and like that, I think, is what's useful. And then also, I think another part is the thing I like what you said of people, the way people think about you. I know it doesn't seem like it, but most of the time, people are thinking about themselves. Like even the times that they're thinking about you, even when they are, it's not as much. Like think about how much you spend time thinking about yourself versus other people. Like just sit and think about that. Like people are normally the main character in their own story. Like most of the time, they are more worried about what they're doing, how they look like, what they said, where they said it, what they did, kind of thing. So even if you think people are looking at you, and also it's kind of like, is it really your, I think it's a quote that's been said before, is it really your business what people are thinking about you? Like if you're still able to do what you have to do and get done, and you can still reach your goals regardless of what people think about you, then I think that also can bring a sense of, I guess, like change, I guess, or just make you think differently about things, and then that can influence your actions. So I think that is a good thing to do. To just kind of be aware of what you're doing at the moment and be like, what is the purpose of this? Why am I doing this? And does it help me with my goals, or does it move me forward instead of keeping me stuck or frozen in time, even though I can move at any time. Like you can always do something, right? In most cases. So yeah, and then I guess one other point I'll bring up, and then I'll bring it to you, Dagny, is figuring out how to view your thoughts more objectively. And I know it's really it's really hard to do this. It's so hard to do this, but sometimes I try to do that. I haven't completely been successful, but I don't know if anyone's heard this quote, like, "We are not our thoughts." So like, just because you think something doesn't necessarily mean that you're right, right? And there's this book I was reading. I think it's called Untethered Soul. I think maybe we can link it later, but it's helped me in kind of trying to be more present. And in Untethered Soul, I think the author is like Michael something, and he says something about like, are you aware that you always have internal dialogue? Like even when like you be just like minding your business, and there's like conversations with yourself happening in your head like all the time. Like, like you'll be, or you have to do something like, okay, well, should I do this? I have to drop off Eric, and then I have to do this with Natasha, and then I have to do this, and I have to, you're always like having, and even you're trying to sleep, and they're just like thoughts just in your head, like full blown conversation with yourself in your head. And you're just kind of like, why? Wait, you're doing it. So why are you like, you are in control of these like it's literally your voice, right? So I think if we are aware of this, it can help us be objective and be like, okay, just because I think I suck, maybe I don't. Like maybe that's not true. Like I think we can, like, we're so quick to question other people, but why don't we question ourselves? Right? I mean, obviously because it's in your head. So obviously, but think about it, like just because like, oh, I suck at this, or I don't like this, and I'm like, really? Are you sure? Did you think about it? Kind of thing. So I think trying, it's hard to do because you have to be present, right? You have to be very aware of when the thought happens, you need to be aware of it. And that ties into what you said about, you have to train your mind like a muscle, right? The same with like way that you work out, right? The like people go really intense about working out their bodies, like go to the gym all the time, feel great all the time, and you get to the point where you even enjoy going to the gym, and like you're not as sore anymore. And even if it hurts, you're like, let's go, and you are much more limber. You can move. You're very in control of your body. What about your mind? What about your brain? Like, are you lifting weights metaphorically with your brain? And I think we need to, and it's interesting. I guess it's because like we know more about the body scientifically than the mind. So maybe that's why we tend to focus more on the body. And then for the body, it's more, you can see the body. So you can see, it's easier to see the results of your actions. But with your mind, it's a bit harder, right? It's a more not seen. So I think, yeah, so being able to train your brain and think about things, and even and write down things, and be aware of like every thought that you have about stuff, and think about things objectively. Be like, okay, wait, like, say, oh, I do everything wrong. Like, really? You do? Or were you just trying your best? Or maybe you just used what, like, the one other point I bring up is that thing we love to do where we're like, why did I do that 10 years ago? I shouldn't have done that. Oh my gosh, what a horrible person I am. But like, the knowledge you have now, you didn't have it 10 years ago. So you're beating yourself up for something that happened 10 years ago, but you didn't know. Like this Damali didn't know what 10 years ago Damali was doing. If I had the knowledge I had now, of course I may have done something differently, but you didn't. And I think we have to give ourselves grace. And this thing, I don't know why, I guess it's easy. I don't know why we're always prone to being more negative than positive. right? Like
Mhm.
I don't understand. I guess it's just a human experience where for some reason it's easy to chill in the dark. Like, oh, we're just gonna chill in the dark. I'm like, but the light is right there. I don't understand why. And like, I know y'all like the sunshine. Like, I know everybody be like, I want sun. I want sun. You know, we like a bright, beautiful day, but no, who likes rain? Who likes rain? Like everything soaked, everything like your shoes are soggy, your clothes. No one likes that. But for some reason, we tend to go into that area, and I don't fully understand why that happens. And then sometimes even the more positive or happy looking people tend to be the most depressed too sometimes as well. So yeah, I it's definitely to end my spiel here for a bit. Yeah, so try to be more present. Try to look at your thoughts and think, if someone else was thinking that, would I have the same reaction to it? Right? And try to kind of like, how can I train my mind the way that I train my body in a positive way? So yeah, that's my one point to say about things that can help you that are still an
Mhm.
uphill battle. Right. And what about you, Dagny? What are some things that help you
Yeah, I think
not
for
be distracted by thoughts?
right. I think for me, I love what you noted about the thoughts part. So I'm definitely going to
Mm,
also add to that. I think for me,
yes,
with my
piggyback
three,
on that.
yes, with my three buckets, I think with all of them, I do believe in the quote about the way you do anything is the way you do everything, because the way you do everything is the way you do anything.
Oh, all dramatic,
Bars.
but not.
I didn't write that. It's a quote from someone
Snap,
else.
snap, snap, snap,
Snap,
snap.
snaps. And so for me, I'm very particular about being mindful, intentional, and disciplined with everything that I can control, which means basically everything about me or everything to do with me or how I'm showing up or how I'm interacting, it needs to be based on that. So when it comes to the first bucket or pillar, which is technology, for me, technology, I love gadgets, I love tech, I love the innovation, and it is part of my work. So it makes sense that I do need to be very disciplined and intentional about how I use it and what I use it for, because part of it is a tool that I'm actually working with, in addition to possibly entertainment or inspiration. So for me, what I've had to learn how to do is figure out how to balance me contributing to the internet and social media, looking where do I find inspiration and content that actually resonates with me, and being more discerning of what not to follow or subscribe to that puts me in a space of negativity or questioning myself or even comparing myself. So, few things that I've done with that is one, I actually don't have notifications turned on my phone for any of the social media apps. I know, crazy, but like, how would you know what's happening? And it's like, to be honest, you're not missing a whole lot. Okay. So instead, like, it puts me back in the driver's seat of when I choose to open the app is when I will then interact with messages, comments, and other people's content. In addition to that, I make a point of only following accounts that actually feel like this is what I want to see on my feed. And since now, especially if you have a public profile, you can still interact with people without following back everybody. I know for some, it's like you got to follow back because that shows love or something or whatever. But to me, I'm like, if we're still using this as a communication tool, we can still discuss or interact or share things without me having to follow back everybody, because my feed is important to me too. Like, I am entitled to want to see what I want to see on my feed. It doesn't mean everybody else has something terrible, but like, if it doesn't resonate with me, it doesn't resonate. And what a lot of people take note of, like, if there's stuff on your feed that triggers you, you shouldn't be following it. That doesn't mean create a bubble of bias, because in a previous episode we noted these social media apps are very much into feeding your biases and prejudices and things like that. I don't mean that. But if there's stuff that's making you feel inadequate on your feed, if there's stuff that's making you feel sad about your life, cut it out. Like, you don't need to see it. So it's great to have aspirations. Like, some people want to follow like yeah, one day I want to be on a helicopter, or one day I want to be at this size, or one day I want to learn this skill. Now that's great. But you got to make sure that can you hold yourself accountable to have the discipline where you are looking at that stuff just to be inspirational and you're actually going to get it done? Or are you just looking at that stuff and it's allowing you to sit back and be like, yeah, that's a lot. I don't think I could ever. I probably could never. And then you're going into now granted, I know she called it the darkness. Now granted, the darkness is not all that bad, but the negative parts of.
I mean, exactly, because everyone's sitting in it.
Right. So if you're sitting in it like that, those types of accounts are not doing what you claimed it was supposed to do for you. If it's making you feel like, wow, now you feel completely inadequate because obviously where they're at is so far away from where you're at right now. So there's no way that could happen. So then cut it. Don't follow that because obviously it's not giving you the inspiration that initially you wanted. So that's on a social media or tech side where I'm very intentional and mindful of how I'm using it. I will do the deal of sometimes I feel inspired to be like, you know what, this week I'm just not going to open the app. I'm just, and I think due to me training myself in this, I don't need to delete the app. I don't need to deactivate it. I don't need to announce to the world that I'm going to go off for a week. I just don't open the app for the week.
And the world is still there.
The world was still there. I didn't really miss out much on anything, which is another thing. As you train yourself on this, you'll take note that a lot of the content on social media is very much of a filler. It really isn't anything that you got to learn something new. It really isn't. You didn't learn something new about your friend either, because ain't nobody really posting everything about their lives on there anyways. So you really didn't miss that much other than maybe a trendy dance, which to be honest, you could still catch up on it the week later. So it's okay. So I think that will help when training with mindfulness, see how far you can I've noted how far I can push myself in being more in the driver's seat of how I interact with content, with technology, and with the internet. The next pillar, which is mindfulness when it comes to your thoughts. And so I will add to what you also noted about that of yes, it's true that which I feel is it's true and also sometimes sad, where when we acknowledge that people really are just thinking about themselves.
Yes.
All the time and really don't really think about you as much as you think they were thinking about you. And I think, but I want us to also take note that doesn't mean they don't care about other people. It's not selfish to think about yourself. It's a good thing to be self-reflective, self-aware, questioning yourself, right? That's a good thing. It doesn't mean you don't care about other people. It's a good thing. It's true though, for me, I do have times where I will slip into the sadness, which will then bring up negative thoughts. And I've noted for me, I also see myself as yes, I do have, there be shareholder conference meetings in my mind at any given time. All right. Every aspect of myself always has some dissertation to present to the meetings that we be having in my head. And sometimes it's interesting to see how that plays in the dynamics of those thoughts and the emotions that then get triggered to respond to those thoughts, where nothing else has happened, right? You literally I had a regular day, everything was fine. And then just sadness comes up or anxiety comes up. And I'm where is this? Wait, what happened? I'm all looking around what occurred? And then and sometimes I don't know if the thoughts happen to trigger it first or the emotion happened to trigger it first. So then the anxiety or the sadness comes in, then the thoughts come in sometimes the thoughts will come in that I see it as, and this is I am replaying this for you to get you to see at least the process I go through of holding space for myself to walk through these things. Because when it comes to mindfulness, to me, I feel it's not about shutting down the negative thoughts. They're there for a reason. They're being triggered to show you something that you need to possibly release or take note of or be mindful of for yourself that, you're carrying this and this might be triggering other things or blocking other things because you're still carrying it. So that's why it's coming up, right? So the anxiety and sadness will come up, and then the thoughts to further support that feeling would then come up. So then the voice that will come up in the meeting for this dissertation presentation at this shareholder
Going
conference
on
in my mind,
in your mind.
in my mind, will say, well, because sadness and anxiety decided to come to the meeting, that must mean that nobody cares about us, or we're a burden, or, well, it's better for us to self-isolate because obviously nobody cares. That's why I'm feeling sad and anxious. So, and let's try and bring up receipts, but only look at the part of the receipt that gives you the evidence to emphasize that particular negative thought. That's what's going on in the conference. And then everybody else, all the other aspects of me are looking at the table, nodding their heads like, okay, I see what you did there in this PowerPoint presentation. Okay. Now my role in this, because I'm also sitting at the table, right? My role in that is I do need to give that aspect of me the time to present this because it feels it's true. That's why it's bringing it up, which is a part of me feeling that this is true. This is why we're feeling sad and anxious, because it was silly of us to feel like we could be anything but these negative thoughts. Mm-hmm. But then during that meeting, the key to mindfulness is to get to the point where you can sit through that meeting, hold space for that presentation, and then be like, okay, great. I have something to add to that. So can you also roll down the rest of the receipt to also show that?
Still in her mind, by the way.
Yeah, this is all in my mind. Can you also roll down and show the rest of the receipt to also show that you do have examples of people showing that they appreciate you and showing that they love you, or you do have evidence to see that you've been loving yourself, you've been showing up for yourself, how much you should be proud of how far you've gone? Can we also show the next slide of where everybody actually just has their own lives going on? So it's not a reflection of you if people have not showed up recently, or it's not a reflection, like it's not that you've done something wrong for people to interact with you in a certain way. Like, can we, because you're only showing this one part, can we also show this part, right? So like being able to walk yourself through that. So also holding space for, yes, sadness and anxiety, your feelings are valid. It makes sense. And it's like, okay, well, let's roll through why we're feeling that way. But then also, as you noted, these feelings do not define who I am. They're just what I'm experiencing. So when you go through that process of, okay, now I've acknowledged what the feelings are and the thoughts that are coming with it, I've acknowledged that I don't need to define myself with pain, or you don't have to define yourself through sadness, or define yourself through anxiety, or define yourself with what you perceived was a mistake before, sort of thing. And then take note of like, okay, I appreciate the experience. I appreciate that we got through these feelings, but we're going to end this meeting on a note of, we are still very proud of ourselves. And there is evidence to counteract the negative thoughts. So they're not the be all end all in our story. Yes. So that's where and it takes a lot of training or practice to do that, because it's much easier to allow the first presentation during that conference to be the only thing that's said during that meeting. And then everybody else leaves the meeting being like, well, I guess that's who we are. So yeah, that's fine. Okay. And then sadness and anxiety is like, well, I guess I'm going to be here for a while. Let me go get some popcorn. And then they'll just sit down and just be there
just
because
be sad forever.
Yeah, let's just be sad forever, because I mean, nobody else decided to present anything else in the meeting. So we might as well continue like that. So it's now, granted, if it works for you, I have a very vivid imagination, so that it works for me to see it that way. But if take what resonates with you in terms of how to walk yourself through what you feel and what you're thinking, and understand that for whatever reason, our minds, there's a part of us in our minds that beat up on ourselves a lot. It's like we carry ourselves at a certain standard that, to be honest, we would never be that brutal with anybody else, but we are so brutal with ourselves, and we got to give ourselves more grace and hold more space for ourselves. And I think that does go with like a previous episode we did about dealing with your inner child, or dealing with reparenting yourself, and how a lot of these thoughts might be reflections of how your kid self internalized something that they heard or saw, that maybe the adult didn't fully understand what they were saying or knew how it would reflect on you. If a teacher said that, oh my gosh, this kid is so shy, you must be antisocial, or this kid is lazy, you don't do this, you don't do that. And maybe your kid self is still kind of carrying that of like, well, the teacher said or this guardian said, or this bigger kid said, so I must carry that as my identity because they said it. There's still shadows of that will come up during these very important shareholder conference meetings in your mind. And right. I think the goal should always be that, but you are now the adult sitting at that table too. And older versions of you are also sitting at that table looking at you like, so are you gonna call this out? Or are you gonna pass it on to me 10 years later to have to call it out when I'm sitting at your chair, sort of thing. So that's how I was seeing in my mind. Then the third final bucket, yes, about people that you surround yourself with or the people you deal with in work, in school, in relations of different kinds in your life. I do feel that the notion that the people you surround yourself with are a reflection of you and will influence you or how you see yourself or what you think you're capable of. And so I do think it's also very important to be disciplined and discerning about who you're surrounding yourself with, who you're interacting with. I think it's normal to have different circles there's some people in this category that are kind of like just for a good time. Some people in another category that are a bit closer, other people in another category that are very close. Those sorts of things are important because you need to take responsibility for yourself and how you're showing up. And if all of us are interested in, yes, we're trying to be a better version of us, but we also want to be contributing positively to other people, well, then you need to make sure you're around the people that you can contribute to, right? You need to be around people who actually value what you are contributing. You need to be around people who can teach you something and you teach them something. And I think when it comes to if you resonate with like what I'm noting, because my level of discipline or intention can seem kind of intense maybe for some people. And so I think that comes into play when dealing with other people in terms of accepting people where they're at. I've noted for me sometimes being seen as like highly efficient or self-sufficient and disciplined, sometimes that's seen as like, oh, wow, that's admirable, like a very admirable trait to have. And they're just taking note of it, of like that inspires them to also get up and show up sort of thing. Because it's like, wow, if you're showing up like this in spite of the environment we're in or in spite of whatever's happening, then I don't have an excuse. So thank you so much for sharing that or just embodying that. Because it's not like I'm out here, hi, I'm Dagny, Miss Discipline. It's not that, but it's just like the way you show up and how people are observing you. While there's other people who may note that and be triggered by it or feel like I noted in social media of like now they feel inadequate because this is an example of where they might want to be. And they might be getting a little anxious about the gap between where they are now and where they want to be. And that may turn into, depending on their personality, depending on where they're at in their lives, where I've experienced sometimes where people then switch that up to be like, we're going to project that back to me and mock me or exploit me or exclude me because of that and among other things. And so that ties into the mindfulness with your thoughts, because it's like, even though all of us are very aware of how other people perceive us, it's not your job about how they think of you or what they reflect back to you or any of that. So that's where also, I think that's where you can be discerning in ways of how you are choosing who you interact with and accepting people where they're at. But also I've had to learn about like maintaining healthy boundaries or discerning when certain boundaries need to happen or not happen, so that I'm not spiraling in the thoughts or spiraling in feeling like things are being one-sided in those interactions as well. And so last thing for people, if you resonate with this, if you've also experienced this with people and stuff, I know that it's not necessarily fun being intensely disciplined. Yeah. Like it's not like a game or something like that. And it sometimes can feel exhausting or not fun at all, to sometimes feel like you can only rely on yourself to do everything, or there's no way to seek out, or may have difficulty seeking help or asking for help, or feel exhausted by feeling like you're the one who does everything, or everyone asks you to do everything, or whatever, however it plays out in your life. Something to be mindful of. It's not a bad thing to be disciplined and stuff like that, but also be mindful of your boundaries. Be mindful of allowing people to help you the way they can, right? Regardless of what level of discipline they're at, they can still be of service, or they can still, like, there's still stuff you can learn from them, or there's still stuff that they can take off your plate if you allow them to. Yes. Because this trait that some of us may have of being like highly disciplined or intentional or sufficient is a trait that develops not because like one day you just decided. Sometimes it is a trait that develops because you've had experiences of people letting you down, or you've had experiences feeling like your control or your autonomy has consistently been taken away from you. So this is the way to protect yourself from that happening. And so to be mindful of not going into the extreme of feeling like you could never rely on anybody, or no one could ever help you, kind of thing. I think they can. It just takes time to find those people, while balancing not being exploited or excluded.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think, yeah, people can also be a distraction, obviously, and I think I don't know if you've heard that too, where like they say, like you are who you surround yourself with,
Mm-hmm.
and not, I mean, not like fully. I think it's just like there's certain like I know for me, there's certain parts of my life where there's certain type of friendships or so-called friendships I would tolerate, but now I couldn't anymore because I'm at a different space. And then also seeing people where they are at. Don't try to, people most of the time will show you, unless they're like narcissistics, and like or they're like, sociopaths, or they're like the point is to deceive you. People will normally show you what they can do and who they are, and you kind of have to try to accept that. And if that's something you can be your own person, that's fine. And I also remember there's some kind of, I think it was an anime, I think it was a love story I watched sometimes, where it was something about like the guy saying like I what was it? It was like, I love you, not the state of you. And I thought that was a really interesting way to express that, because it's like, I love you, the core of who you are, not the state of you. And we know what I mean by state of you is like how you are right now. So like maybe right now you're a mess. Maybe right now you can't do certain things. Maybe right now, but that's not that's not all of you, right? Like just because I see you at a bad time doesn't mean that, oh, they must always be like this, or oh well, they've always done this. So it's like, no, you the core of who you are is the real part, right? And I think we've seen this probably in shows and people we know, where it's like they were a certain way, and then all of a sudden something happened, they completely changed, and you're just like, what? It's like as if they removed the mask that was like on them, kind of thing. So I think when you're thinking about think about that too. Like when people react to you a certain way, they might not, maybe the state of them. And that isn't to mean like, oh, let people walk all over you. No, but just kind of like kind of try to understand people too, so you don't, and then that also can play into the distraction and headspace thing, because like if you're so consumed by why is this person doing this to me, why are they do, then that's also distracting you from what you need to do, right? You need to just kind of, I know it's said a lot, but focus on yourself. Like, when you're taking a test and like the teacher put the test out and you're like, focus on your own test, right? You're not supposed to look at anyone else's test. You're not supposed to cheat. Other people do that, but you're not supposed to do that. Yeah. They always say, and even on the, what's it called? On the, well, I don't know, it's a little bit different, but like on the planes when they're like, oh, take care of yourself first before you take care of other people. Cause if you can't stand, then how are you going to help other people stand up? Right. That isn't to say you can't help people where you are at, but just be more aware of other people and how they act, and think. It's hard because sometimes when people do certain things, and I've had to learn this too, where like there's been times where things have happened and they really like hurt me. And then I'm older now, and a similar thing happens. It hurts me, but then I'm like, wait a minute, let me think about this for a second. I'm like, oh, that's why they did that. And then later I'm like, oh, okay. And I try to remember when I'm able to have a shift in my thoughts about things, or shift in perspective that's like healthier, to think, oh, okay, they're being rude, but it's not because of me or something. Or I thought they were being rude, but and also you can ask people too. I think sometimes you could be like, hey, you kind of did this to me. Why? And then figure out, that it's not about you. And yeah, and it's true. People not thinking about you, it's not to say they don't care, like, but it's just like, even you, like, even when you care about people and you do stuff for other people, for the most part, you think about yourself, right? You're thinking about what you're doing today. Have I bought this thing? Did I, like, oh, I have to brush my teeth. I have to make my bed. I have to go to work. I have to do all these things. And I also have, and a lot of it is like, oh, I have to go do my nails today, or I have to take care. I have to go to my therapy session. Like, for the most part, you're kind of focusing on yourself, right? And I try to think about that with friends too. And when we had an earlier episode about friendships and not feeling jilted. Sometimes I feel like, oh, like, my friends, do they really, like, I always think I care more. And maybe that's not true. Maybe they do care about me. Obviously they care about me, but like, they just show it, or can show in a different way than the way I show it, kind of thing. And sometimes I'm always like, I can't it can't only be my way that people
Mhm.
show up for certain things, right? But also, as I've gotten older, I've kind of I've got, I don't know if many people, I've gotten used to kind of like, most of the time you kind of have to do your own thing. Like, you can hear some advice from people, some people try to help, blah blah blah. But as I've gotten older, I'm like, like, I'm always like, how can I mean, I don't know if I could be wrong, but I'm like, how can I be like a full adult if I don't fully pay attention to myself without being overly influenced by other forces, right? You kind of really, like, you can listen to people and take what you can, but it's like, you need to be able to completely listen to your own thoughts, and what exactly does this, you yourself, what do you want to do? And that's like that's the main thing. And if you can be sure on that and focus on that, then I think that also makes it easier to not be distracted by other thoughts or other people or other things, kind of thing. And the thought thing is really hard because, like, it really is hard. I mean, I've gotten better as I've gotten older. I'm better at kind of like seeing my thoughts and things like that. But and also, like you said, the meetings in your mind, like the conversations you have in your mind. And like, and sometimes I try to do this thing where if I do feel bad about something, I just feel bad. I just let myself, like, it's okay. Like, I'm like, I'll feel bad right now, and then in a few days or a few weeks or months, I'll feel better. Right. And then, and try not to see the negative emotion as a bad thing. Like, just see it as, it's just an emotion. I feel really crappy right now, and that's okay. Figure out, why do I feel crappy? Oh, okay, that's why. Okay, and just kind of feel sad, and then, as opposed to like, I think many people have said, like, fighting it. You kind of have to go with the flow with your emotions, right, and your thoughts often, because otherwise they will like swallow. They can kind of swallow you up, especially when you need to face the truth about stuff. Like, I think recently I had there was a memory I had forgotten about, and then I remembered about it, and then I thought it didn't bother me, and then I started crying about it, and I'm like, damn it, what the heck?
Mm.
But instead of just being like, oh, I'm just gonna ignore it, I'm like, okay, let me just feel it. I feel bad about it and cry, and like, oh, okay. And then I noticed something interesting after I went through all of that. The next time I made myself think about the memory again, and I was able to think about it more objectively, and it didn't make me sad. And I was like, oh, wow, I was able to do that, kind of thing. So, and I have to kind of, I feel like, write these things down or remember that, oh my gosh, I can change my perspective on things. And it's like, yes, right. You are not like, we can't be like, I don't, well, I don't mean slave, like slaves from like, 400 years ago, but like, I mean slave to the rhythm. I'm just kidding. No, I mean like slave to the social media. Social media. You were on a slave social media. Social media is not in control of you. Instagram is not like chilling in your bathroom with a knife. Like, no, like, you can, if you want to get off of it, you can figure out and you don't have to do it completely. Because I'm the opposite of Dagny here. Like, when it comes to discipline, oh my goodness, like, I'm like, how can you not use social media? What's wrong with you? I'm just kidding. But I do think that we are more in control than like we think that we are, and you can scale back. Like, if you think you can't, you can. Like, you can spend less. What you can do one less hour of social media a day. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to watch the episode today. I guarantee you, if you go to that episode tomorrow, it will still be there, you know? And then also, and also I think about most of the stuff I see on Instagram, all these places. Do I really like how most of the stuff, does it really add to my life? Am I really like, is it really making me or changing me or doing anything to my life really? And if it's not, and I think we also talked about this in an earlier episode about self-help books and how like I ended up reading, I would read them, and be like, oh my God, these are so fun to read. Oh, it's so awesome. And then I noticed, oh, I'm not acting though. I'm not living my life. And I'm like, if I don't live my life, then who's who's gonna live it then? Like if I'm not living it, then what am I? I mean, yes, it's nice to see other people's success stories and what they're going through, but if it's not helping me, and also another point that it makes me think of is like advice with things. Like sometimes, I mean, I think we talked about the whole advice thing where try to give advice only when it's asked. A lot of times people like to just throw advice at you and be like, I'm pretty sure this person I didn't ask you. Like, there was no question in this. Why are you giving me advice? Right. And I think the advice thing is true too, where it's like, like if you're not gonna like, because some people have like their own opinions about stuff, and sometimes I feel like if you're not gonna give me a solution that I can use, if you're not gonna be like, oh, if you do this, then this will happen, then I'm like, then why are we talking? Like, you know what I mean? Like, why are we talking if you're not gonna, because people like to just kind of say what they feel kind of thing, or their own opinions on things, even though everyone has different perspectives. But yeah, I think that, I mean, we didn't go so much into meditation, but I know meditation's a big thing, right? People being
Mm.
able to meditate, things like that. That's difficult for me. I've tried to do the whole, I'm gonna sit in a room in the dark and I'm gonna be away from my phone and I'm just gonna think, and I can do that for like 1 day, 2 days, and then I'm over it. Like, like I'm done.
Ma'am.
But like that's what happens because it's very I know for me it's very hard for me to like sit still fully. Not that I have like I don't think I have like ADD or anything, but like I do. I mean, we are neurodivergent as we said, so like it's hard for me to like sit still and just and I'm also the type of person who likes to stuff things down. Like if something happened, I try not to think about it, or I don't want to think about something, so I'll just like, oh, I'll think about it later, or kind of thing, or you know or sometimes I'm like, well, okay, well, I'm sad. I'll just be sad forever then, because I don't see there's any way for me to fully be happy. So I'll just be sad and just be the sad person I am, kind of thing, and then continue to cover it up, because I'm the type of person that's like very like happy-go-lucky, very positive. People have said they didn't think I had anxiety. People have said, oh, I thought you didn't get sad about stuff, but I'm like, I know how dark I can go inside. Like even though there's a smile on my face, I can get quite dark. And I'm always kind of like, oh, okay, I'll just be the person that looks happy, but I'm never happy. Like, okay, that's fine. But again, that's just like a thought. Like, is it true? Is it the right thought? And I love what Dagny brought up about how you have a shareholder meeting and like the sadness is there and the happiness and everybody else. And the sadness is like, oh, okay, you don't want to listen to the happiness part. You don't want to listen to the construct. Okay, we'll just sit here and have some popcorn then. If you want to be sad, okay. Like, because it's like it's almost like your brain is waiting for you. Like the brain is like, aren't you in control of yourself? You're just gonna let me run amok in your mind with all of these thoughts, and you just believe them. Like you don't even try to fight me on it. You're just like, well, my brain said it, and I'm like, aren't you in? You're like, you allowed you allowed the thought, because I know I can block thoughts. I've done it
Mm.
before. I know that when I don't want to think about something, I can stop thinking about it. So then, if I can do that, then why is it that? So sometimes you can do that, other times you can't. No, 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 no. That's not. Come on. And the thing is, like, you can. I feel like there's more chances to train your mind than your body. Right? You know what I mean? Like you can't always you can't lift weights at any time. You know what I mean? Like you can't like run anyway. Like you can't run like your whole life. You just run like bathroom. You run to the bathroom, but you can't really you can't do that, right? Like but your mind, you can work your mind anytime, like anytime, right? When you're focused on things. So yeah, so I'm still learning. I'm still trying. And even the thought that I say about being lazy and disciplined, everyone has like, if you want to do something, you'll do it. Like I know I do have discipline. I know that I do. Because if I didn't, then I wouldn't do anything. Like, like even I mean, I know it's like silly, but even brushing your teeth every morning, you do it, right? Like, does anything distract you from brushing your teeth? No, So I know, that's the easy thing. But yeah, so same thing with social media. Even honestly, even right now when we were talking, I got a notification about, I don't know if you guys know BTS,
Oh
K-pop,
dear.
okay, but I got a notification because like they were doing a live or something, and I saw it and I was like, oh damn it! And it was right when Dagny was talking about distractions, and I was like, no, put the phone down. Kind of thing. So yeah, so it's very hard to do, but yeah, but I think we should have more control. And we shouldn't have issues with people who are able to control it, because it's you need to be in charge of your life. You can't use excuses or reasons why you can't do stuff. Like you need to be the one to decide in your own way. You don't have to copy anyone. You don't have to like, but just however you can live your life in a more mindful. I think the main takeaway from our podcast should be try to be more mindful, try to be more present, try to really think about everything you do more. Not in a like creepy, like negative way, but just in an objective way. Like, why did this happen? Oh, because this happened. Oh, because this. And try not to get distracted by your own thoughts and emotions in that way, and try not, and I'm not saying like all the time. Obviously, if you're really upset or really sad about something, you have to go through it. But you need to be more present and be aware that uh, dopamine is a thing, and our brains are affected by social media, like in a big way. Like, even though maybe we haven't fully gone to the health part, but it is a big thing. And our mental health situation is a big deal. I was reading like on the news, I read something where what we're not in this generation, our mental health is not really getting better. And I feel like people tend to think that when you go through mental health issues as you get older, you get better at dealing with it, but it's not. It's being really hard, which makes sense because look at everything that's happening in the world,
Mhm.
right? So because of that, that's why we need to try more than ever to try to have as much control as we can on our own thoughts and our own minds and our own emotions, because a lot of stuff is going on, a lot of things are being thrown at us, and a lot of things are being uncovered from the rug. And I think that we need to be in control and realize that they do this for money. Like the social media thing, a company is literally thinking, how is the best way I can keep this person distracted to make money? It's
Mhm.
all about money. They're just using your brains to make money. Do you want them to do that? Right. And even the lighting, like I read, I think it was a neuroscientist person, a video I watched where she said, if you put your phone in grayscale, like you make
Mm.
everything look gray in the same color, that can even affect your brain and make you distract yourself less. Because even the colors, the way that the Instagram, the logos looks and how they make it and how they create it and everything, they use all of these algorithms and things to, suck you out, right? And I think I even heard about this other influencer who said she doesn't follow other influencers who do the same thing that she does. Like she doesn't follow them because she doesn't want to get, you know, negative influence. But because it's true, if you're looking at videos and they make you feel bad about yourself, even though you know that they're all doctrine and a lot of the fun times people are having, they're not really happening. They're not really happening. They're just making the picture and the video look like they're having a great time. And behind the scenes, they're probably going through a lot of stuff. So yeah, if something makes you feel bad, then don't look at it. Don't try your best to not look at it. To exit out of it. Cut the time out. Remove the notifications. There's all these things that you can do, even on your phone, for functions that you can use um, to deal with it. So I think that's and yeah, and we have to figure out a way to, yeah, just think about reparenting. Be a parent to yourself, right? Because when I was at home, it's easy for my parents to turn off the TV or take away or do things like that. But if living as an adult on your own and you're not with your parents, I have to do it, and no one's gonna like take it off for me. Like, no, you have to do it. You have to focus. You have to give yourself time to have breaks away from the technology or breaks away from things that are distracting you, so you can do what you like need to do. Otherwise, it can be it does affect you. I know for me it does suck up energy to look through social media. It does suck up creativity. It does suck up, and I'm like, I had so much things to do. Oh well, and then I think, well, I went to work, so that's one thing, and I'm like, that work is not like you need to do. There's other things in your life that you need to take care of in terms of health and things like that. So yeah, I think I feel like there's so much more to say, but maybe we'll do like another podcast. Otherwise,
I think
this is going to be
so.
3 hours long.
Indeed. No, we definitely, I think possibly we'll do a part two because even in this discussion,
Yes,
we brought up other points that I know we can dive in deeper because it's true. We were going to
definitely.
also speak more about meditation as well. So I think,
That's true.
yes.
Meditation.
So, because yes, I have experience with that too, or at least trying to build that muscle too. So yeah, actually,
Yes.
we have decided there will be a part two about
Yes, there will be a part two.
eliminating distractions. Yes. So thank you so much for this conversation.
Yeah,
I enjoyed it.
Be present.
Yes, it was nice being present. And you listening, we hope you enjoyed the conversation. As always, let us know what you think. Let us know your comments, your questions. We love hearing from you. And we shall see you in the next episode.
Right. Be mindful, be present, do your best. And remember, your brain is a muscle that needs to be trained. So continue to try your best to train it. All right. Okay. See you guys next time. Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye. Take care.